I mean, I got these lines clamped down, so they're all secure, and the N75 is plugged in. So I mean, it's technically like ready to go. First thing I just got done was I put some anti-seize on the studs, the turbo studs. I torqued all of those 5 nuts down to 20 Newton meters, the OEM spec. I should be able to actually put the rest of that turbo blanket wire on this side. Alright, so it doesn't look super pretty, but I got that wire where I want it. I'm happy with that. First, I'm going to check out this downpipe fitment. So like I said, the manifold's all bolted down, so that's not going anywhere. The engine can obviously rock forward and backwards a tiny bit. The downpipe right now is loosely V-banded onto the turbo, and it is touching this cover over the subframe. This cover right here, this like big plastic, this big metal shield. The downpipe can actually move up further a little bit, but I wouldn't want it up any further because the rest of my exhaust is already gonna have to come up quite a bit. So if anything, I would want it to slide like towards the passenger side a little bit. Yeah, you see they're not gonna be mated up flat up against each other. So the second thing is the drive shaft fitment. Let's see if I can get the drive shaft up into place with the downpipe installed. Alright, so I'm actually using the camera to see right now because I can't get an angle because the downpipe's blocking my view like this. So I'm pretty sure that I have the drive shaft up in position. Drive shaft is definitely seated on the transfer case. And yeah, look how close that is. That downpipe and drive shaft fitment is a little close for comfort. But yeah, I'm getting these bolts started. Here's the bottom one. I should be able to get that top one from here. I won't be able to get this one because it's the downpipe's in the way. I can rotate the wheel and get that third one on there. Well, unfortunately, the fitment didn't get any better after tightening those down a little bit. It's still really close to hitting the drive shaft. And what I'm also realizing is that this downpipe has this lip, and my SPM exhaust does not have that. These two would not be able to mate up to each other anyway. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do about that. It looks like the dump tube is gonna fit. I'm gonna have to mount it on the side of the drive shaft opposite of the downpipe, so like over here. My downpipe V-band clamp is oriented such that it's gonna possibly get in the way, or it's gonna be really tight. So I'm gonna have to rotate that V-band clamp, or maybe actually switch it around the opposite side. So I'll try to take that V-band clamp off and spin it around the other way. Okay, I have that downpipe V-band clamp switched around. It's going the opposite direction now. That is now out of the way, and now really the only issue is the turbo blanket. The thing is, when this dump tube gets hot, the outside of the turbo blanket is going to get really hot. So as long as the outside of the blanket is allowed to get extremely hot, then that's fine. It should be, because I mean the outside of the blanket should be allowed to touch the manifold, which gets extremely hot. So that looks good, but the next fitment issue that I'm foreseeing is with my heat shield that has the coolant line in it that bolts to the top of the head and runs right here. So I'm thinking that this seems like it's gonna be interfering with that. So here's the piece I'm talking about. It's that heat shield with the coolant line running through it. So this goes like this. Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, that's not even close, because that is where it goes. That guy goes right there. This hard line comes right here to this soft line. Yeah, I think I would be able to bolt it on. Yeah, I would still be able to bolt it on. The manifold's not in the way of bolting it on, but I cannot get my external wastegate on, which means I'll have to not run this heat shield I'll have to just make my own coolant line instead of using this one. So, do not believe I have any coolant lines that would be good for that. That would run, I mean, it would look kind of silly to like still run it back here. So what I'll have to do is just, let's see, it comes from right here. So I could just run it along the manifold and just run the coolant hose maybe like in front of this, or I could actually sneak it in here and just run it along with these fuel lines, bring it all the way right up here. So that won't be that bad. It's just one more thing I have to do. So I do have a little bit of coolant line. I don't think it's the right size, and it's obviously not nearly long enough, but I should be able to order some of this tomorrow. Really, I could get it tomorrow if I want to pay the shipping, because McMaster Car has same day shipping. Yeah, it's not the right size anyway. This is, I think, 3/8. Yeah, this is 3/8. And that is probably 1/4 inch. It's gonna look kind of funny coming around like that, but it is what it is. Or I could just follow it straight over, but that would look way worse. Just bring it back here. I forgot that this actually has another little spot back here that goes to this hose. So I'm actually gonna have to get a some kind of like T-fitting as well. The good thing is that I'm pretty sure this is all 1/4 inch. Let's see. I have a 1/4 inch fuel hose. I can at least test fit. Okay, they're not 1/4 inch. So what's between a 1/4 inch and 3/8? So I likely need 5/16 coolant hose. And while I'm at it, I might as well order my vacuum hose for my N75, because I was just gonna use 1/4 inch, but really the proper size is 3/16. I just got home from work. I went to McMaster Car to get a bunch of hoses that I need to finish up this installation. I got new N75 hoses, clamps, I got coolant hose, a T-fitting to bring that coolant hose where it needs to go. So it's looking like tonight can be the night. Alright, here we go. This is going to be for my PCV dump if I decide to go that route on the rear PCV. This is my N75 hose. Got it in red for some reason. I have the choice of red or black. Here's hose clamps. I got 3 sets of different sizes. And then this must be my coolant hose. This guy must be my coolant T-fitting. Alright, so there's my T-fitting for my coolant hose. It is plastic, but I mean, honestly, it's pushing it kind of close. The application temperature is really supposed to only be up to like 220 Fahrenheit. And as you know, coolant can exceed that if you really push your car. But I mean, I checked the melting point for this material, and it's actually closer to like over 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So I should be perfectly fine with this. And then here's my 5/16 coolant hose. Actually, it's weird. I thought I got that. This is not my coolant hose. Well, that's weird. I thought I got blue coolant hose. I might be missing my coolant hose. 3/8. That is not my coolant hose. This was gonna be from my PCV dump. My evap hose dump from back there. Did I delete that off my order? Dude. Tom, you deleted the 5/16 hose that you needed? I deleted the wrong thing. I meant to delete number 6. I did not want this. Instead, I deleted the thing that I needed. If I'm lucky, I won't finish this tonight, so that way this won't hold me up. So for the wastegate, I need to grab my red hose over there and start mocking up how this is gonna go. I'm gonna need to put my discharge pipe in place just so I can see where the nipple is on that. This needs to go like that, right? Let me just get that up in place, then I can basically like reach from the top and measure my hose. Alright, there we go. So that's pretty much in place. And so now I can go from the top of the car and measure how far that nipple is from where my wastegate's gonna be. And right there you can see the nipple. So it's actually, you know, somewhat close to where the wastegate's gonna be, right here. The only difficulty that remains is how to route that so that it doesn't interfere with the intakes. The intake's obviously gonna go right on that side of the turbo. So I assume that this N75 hose is gonna have to wrap on the opposite side of that, because I'm not really gonna be able to make like a tight turn with this. I don't really want to bend that up, but let me grab my intake to see how far out that sticks. Actually the first time I'm fully mounting the intake. So yeah, I mean, looking at that nipple down there, doesn't seem like it's gonna be possible to wrap it any other way than like just straight up around the turbo. I don't know, let's stick the hose on and see what it does. All right, there's my N75 hosing. If anyone's interested, I can give you guys the part numbers for the hoses that I got from McMaster. All right, so I got that on there. I didn't fully clamp it down, but it's on there tight enough where it's not gonna fall off. So let's stuff that down there. Okay, cool. Okay, so the compressor outlet goes in that bottom one if you're holding it like this where the connector is facing down. So the compressor outlet's down there, so that's this hose I just connected. That's gonna go to the wastegate actuator. And then that's the intake return, which I'm gonna be leaving open. So mounting it something like this would be perfect. Like in this orientation, I kind of like this spot for it. Looks like there's enough room for the connector and the bottom hose and this hose. I should probably just not waste time on this and just install it. Like I could switch this up later on in a matter of like 15 minutes because since I'm gonna be having my coolant hose that normally goes right there on that turbo shield, or that heat shield, since I'm gonna be having that running over here, I'm not gonna need to drain my coolant just to come and look at my turbo. I'm gonna be able to see it as clear as day, except that the windshield cowl is gonna be right here, which is obviously gonna tighten it up a little bit. But yeah, I'm still gonna be able to see this pretty damn well. All right, I got that guy cut to its approximate length. Here's approximately how I'll be running this hose right here underneath these two PCVs. It's gonna go right to there, so I'll trim that. All right, so I got that trimmed to its approximate length. Might be too short, might be too long. What I'm gonna do now is get my fittings on this. So I'm gonna swap over that plug to the other side. So that plug right there is gonna go to the other lower one. And I'm gonna put that guy on where this plug is, because that's the side that I need for my turbos, for my N75 hose. And I'm gonna put some anti-seize on both of these because they do suggest some thread lubricant. So they say a 3/16 Allen. Looks like he used like Teflon tape. Well, maybe I should use Teflon tape then, I don't know. He said to use lubricant though, so that's why I figured I would use the anti-seize lubricant. So the instructions do say to do this finger tight and then 2 additional turns. I guess it just squeezes itself in there. It's definitely finger tight, so let's do this additional turn here. It's getting pretty damn tight. I don't want to break this Allen key. So that was 1 additional turn, so that's pretty damn tight. I don't even want to turn that anymore. And I also don't want to break my Allen key. Like that was actually pretty freaking tight. So now let's do the same thing for this side. That's looking good, so I just need to tighten that down a little bit, then I'll be good. And I'm hoping that that doesn't bottom out in there, because it's getting pretty close. Yeah, that is like fully seated up against that body, which is kind of weird to me. Alright, well that's as tight as that's gonna get, and hopefully that doesn't leak. These two are supposed to stay to atmosphere, so that should be good now. Okay, so before I mount the wastegate and the dump tube on here, I forgot, I actually found the other spring that I bought for holding the turbo blanket together. So I'm actually gonna replace that wire, which I actually like worked pretty hard on, but when it comes time to remove that, it's gonna be kind of annoying. So I'd rather have some consistency and use the wire, the spring on both sides. I'm going to cut that off and I'll slide this this spring on here. So that was actually a little bit more trouble than I thought it was going to be, and I'd be lying if I said that that was easy to get that clamp back on, because nothing wanted to fit with the turbo blanket and the wire, the spring right here. But I got it in place, so I got the little insert piece stuck in there. So 2 things. That little piece at the bottom is called the valve seat, and that 100% needs to be installed. Otherwise, air can flow basically around the valve. So right there, exhaust gas can flow right out the dump tube. So that obviously needs to be installed. and it's installed really tightly. So apparently, let's see, maybe you can see it if I do this like this. There you go. So that is pushing against the spring, the valve and the spring. So I'm thinking to get that installed, I might have to apply some pressure downwards to squeeze that down so that the V-band clamp will fit. And yeah, second thing is that I am supposed to put sealant on this. So yeah, I'm gonna take that off and try to get some sealant on there so that doesn't leak. So I got my thread sealant on the plug. So now let's get the thread locker or the thread sealant on my barb as well. Alright, so let's finally go see if I can get this on. Here I got the approximate mounting. I did have to push down on that to basically load the spring a little bit in order to get that clamp on. So that's, I mean, that makes sense that you would want that, you'd want that spring loaded a little bit naturally, just so that that seal, I'm already forgetting what it's called, that valve seat, I think it was called, will seal against the valve. So you want that pressure at all times. My dump tube is gonna have to go as straight back as possible. It is gonna be touching the turbo shield as I thought before, or the turbo blanket. So right there you can see that it's touching it. That's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna tighten this down. And I did put some anti-seize on the threads of these clamps. And there's actually a torque spec for these clamps, and it's 7 Newton meters. So I'm actually gonna follow that. All right, I just got that down to the 7 Newton meter torque spec. That clamp tightened down almost all the way. Like that tightened down a lot more than I thought it would. There's the intake on again. So let's see what this coolant line's doing. So when it mates up to where it should be, it's gonna awkwardly go over my motor mounts, up against that wall, and touch the intake. So that kind of sucks. The only other option would be to like bring it way far down and then bring it back up, but it would have to go so far down that it's like all the way down at the charge pipe. Battery to my camera died a little while ago, and I don't remember what I showed you guys last. I think it might have been threading in the O2 sensor, I'm not really sure. But I just decided to just mount that N75 anywhere, so I just kind of mounted it back there for now. On that top, I just kind of stuck a really short tube. That's the vent line, like the line out that you would typically recirculate into your intake. And then yeah, this coolant line is just way too long. Like it's in the position that it should be. Like right there's where it has to be. And as you can see, it's just really, really long. So what I might do is actually dip it down a little bit and just like weave it between these AC lines. But yeah, I mean, I got these lines clamped down. So they're all secure and the N75 is plugged in. So I mean, it's technically like ready to go. It's just gonna be a little bit tricky tightening this when it's up there on the turbo. Alright, so that clamp's in place. I'll be able to tighten that down later. Alright, so I don't feel like going through the trouble of tightening those two down right now, since I'm really trying to finish up and then go to sleep, since it's like 11:30 at night. I think I'm just gonna leave it like that for now. I want to prevent more water from getting everywhere. I don't want that turbo to get wet again, or the turbo blanket, or anything. So I'm putting this top part of the firewall back on, and then I'm gonna put the windshield cowl back on. As you can tell, I just put it in place off camera. I'm looking good, I'm looking good. So I need to get this guy back on. Uh-oh, I think I just dropped my Allen key behind the fuse box. That Allen key might be a goner. Comment below if you see my Allen key.